So conservatives like Ben Shapiro are freaking out at AOC right now because she has the audacity to offer union-made and American-made merch on her website. She has new sweatshirts and t-shirts that say things like tax the rich, Green New Deal, and cancel student debt. And these are all made in the USA with union labor that pays dignified living wages. It's one of the reasons why, yes, some of the items are a bit pricey. One of the sweatshirts is almost $60. And people like Ben Shapiro have seized upon this moment to basically say that AOC is a giant hypocrite, that only the wealthy and the rich can afford these expensive shirts, that AOC doesn't want poor people to be seen in her clothes, that AOC really doesn't care about poor people or working class people because she doesn't realize that her clothes are out of their reach, and all of these sorts of really disingenuous arguments. Because let's be really clear. These conservatives would be saying the exact opposite if AOC went in the other direction. AOC could have gotten non-union, non-American labor from developing countries where there are poor labor standards or non-existent labor standards. And she could have had these shirts made and sold much cheaper. But it wouldn't have been made with American workers being paid a decent living wage represented by a union to protect their interests. That's the difference in pricing. And I guarantee you people like Ben Shapiro would say, oh, AOC had a sweatshirt made, but it's not even made in the great US of A. Why does she hate our country? Or AOC had a sweatshirt made and it's not union made. I thought AOC was the champion of blue collar workers and union workers. Why does she hate our unionized workers? I guarantee you they would make that argument. It's all about the hypocrisy. This is exactly what it's like when the left tries to criticize inequality. If you're poor and you do it, you're jealous. If you're well off or rich and you do it, you're a hypocrite. There's no level of income where in the conservative mindset, you will be perfectly average enough to criticize inequality. They will always cast you as one of the two. You know, I don't know where the line is. It doesn't matter. You're always either going to be too rich or too poor. And AOC's merch is always either going to be too labor friendly to be accessible or too accessible to be labor friendly. And that's why they're going to attack her on it. Now, we also have to be really clear that if there's any hypocrisy here, it's from people like Ben Shapiro. As Hassan from Twitch noted, basically, while he's railing on AOC about her expensive sweatshirt, he's selling merch on his website, like Christmas ornaments, for $55. For $55, guys. This is a profit-based, venture. AOC is doing this to raise money in part for a political campaign, but he's doing it for pure profit. That's the only reason he's doing it. And he's making $55. That's the revenue he's drawing in on these cheap little knockoff Christmas, ornaments or whatever you want to call them. And so if anybody wants to rail against someone for expensive merch, I don't know if Ben Shapiro is the one to do it. And we also have to add here that this is indeed political fundraising, but it allows people to contribute in different ways. It's true, not everyone could afford these sorts of sweaters. Not everyone could afford these sorts of t-shirts. But it's really an alternative way to give a donation. You give this amount of money, and a portion of that goes into the donation fund after the costs of production have been covered. You can still give AOC $5, $10 or whatever, or you can buy this merch. This is how a lot of political campaigns have alternative fundraising streams. Conservatives do it as well. Liberals do it. Socialists do it. Pretty much everyone has merch they sell as part of their political campaign. And it's really just a way of raising money. But what AOC has done here is she's found a way to raise money, spread her message, and in the process, provide good jobs, union jobs, American jobs at the same time. That by selling these shirts that, yes, maybe not everyone could afford, union workers and American workers are getting work in a way they wouldn't have if AOC made cheaper shirts and less, lower quality shirts with lower quality labor standards, even if she sold more of them. And one final thing needs to be said here. These shirts are quite expensive, yes. But one of the reasons why, not the only reason, one of the reasons why many working class people can't afford things like this is because of people like Ben Shapiro holding down labor standards, because of massive inequality in the United States, because of massive precarity in the United States, because young people in particular don't have the sorts of jobs and opportunities their parents did. And so, yeah, for a lot of people, when the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour or whatever, maybe this is out of their reach. But if they had better wages and better conditions, maybe more people could afford a sweatshirt that cost $50, at least once in a while. It would be more accessible to more Americans if people like AOC were designing labor standards. And the ultimate irony is, if we tax the rich sufficiently to pay for healthcare and education and other essentials, working class people would have more disposable income and may be able to afford a nice sweatshirt now and then. And so it's the utter peak of irony that Ben Shapiro, whose entire economic and social ideology is predicated on keeping poor and working class people down, is trying to lecture AOC on the fact that her sweatshirts are expensive, when Ben Shapiro damn well knows that one of the reasons $58 is out of the reach of working class people is because you have literal billionaires rampaging around the country in opulent wealth while the majority continue to struggle. AOC should continue to do what she's doing. This is going to be very successful. If you can't afford it, maybe look at buying one of these shirts, one of these sweatshirts, and never forget that this is not a good faith attack on AOC. It never has been, and it never will be. The left will be attacked no matter what, as long as we're preaching a message that fights the economic and social and political status quo. And so as long as we're willing to acknowledge that, we need to let those attacks roll off our shoulders and continuing to do the good work that will build an equitable society where maybe more working class people can have a nice shirt now and then.